Sounds.
Every time I tell myself that
darkness you choose, you should know I will become the beauty lost in you. Like your laughs while you medicate, but I will bleed out your poison. Make me sick, but I will decimate. You are just like a siren. Let me go and I will run away, far from the darkness you choose. You should know I will become the beauty lost in you. Just one last kiss to say goodbye. I'm letting go of you this time. So now the beauty's left to die. Inside your cold black eyes. Let me go and I will run away, far from the darkness you choose. You should know I will become the beauty lost in you. Just one last kiss to say goodbye. I'm letting go this time. Now the beauty's left to die. Inside your cold black eyes.
In her heart there's a hole, there's a black mark on her soul. In her hands is my heart, and she won't let go till it's scarred. Try to breathe but I can't, 'cause the air she feeds me is damned. Got a touch like a thorn, 'cause the girl she's hiding horns. She got blood cold as ice and a heart made of stone, but she keeps me alive. She's the beast in my bones. She gets everything she wants when she gets me alone, like it's nothing. She got two little horns and they give me a little bit. She got two little horns and they give me a little bit. She's the fire in the sand, and I burn breathing her in. Now it's love suicide, and I'll sell my soul for the told I don't mind, 'cause her hell's my paradise. She can crush every hole, got her heels stomping down my throat. She got blood cold as ice and a heart made of stone, but she keeps me alive. She's the beast in my bones. She gets everything she wants when she gets me alone, like it's nothing. She got two little horns and they give me a little bit. She got horns like a devil pointed at me, and there's nowhere to run from the fire she breathes. She got horns like a devil pointed at me, and there's nowhere to run from the fire she breathes. She got horns like a devil pointed at me, and there's nowhere to run from the fire she breathes. Horns like a devil pointed at me. She got two little holes in the Suicide, and I'll
it's just fine. Disillusioned by the noise, thinking you still have a choice. Always praying, never straying from the line. Stare at empty mirrors, looking for a sign. Nothing but reflections of the faults that left you blind. Calling for a savior to convince you it's alright. Running from the consequence, you're wasting precious time. There's no one left to hide. There's no one left to hide. There's no one left to hide. So destructive, unrelenting, slowly dying, you're descending, waiting, hoping for an answer to make it out alive. Your deception left you cold, self-afflicted and alone. Stop pretending as you're fading towards the light. Stare at empty mirrors, looking for a sign. Nothing but reflections of the faults that left you blind. Calling for a savior to convince you it's alright. Running from the consequence, you're wasting precious time. There's no one left to hide. There's no one left to hide. There's no one left to hide.
You are not who I had thought you'd be. This perfect mess, a tragedy.
Your vanity is blinding you. The darkest parts they filter through. There's no running away. There's no running away. There's no running away. There's no Stare at empty mirrors, looking for a sign. Nothing but reflections of
All right. What is going on, guys? We are live for episode number 1 of Waypoint Wednesdays. So thank you, everybody that's joined in already. I see Jared or Troop already in there. Howdy, what's going on, man? We've got our guests on the line today. And so if you guys saw the previews and a little bit about what we were talking about, we got our very own first special guest for this one. We're going to have David Pearson and Kyle McCoy, and we're going to be talking a little bit about the project that they have started for one of the this little unknown rally that's coming up next year that just happened to end a few days ago. So we'll be talking with them here in just a second, but I want to thank everybody that's joined us and everybody that's been supporting the podcast. If that's usually Sundays, you can catch it on all your favorite podcast channels and stuff like that. Yeah, Willem, welcome, sir. So that is up. You guys can always find those on your favorite podcasting. So if it's Apple, if it's Google, or if it's Spotify or Anchor, or I don't know, there's a bunch of them out there. But anyway, you guys can check out the podcast as well. We might have some of this information in there as well. But keep an eye out for an episode this coming weekend on the podcast stuff. But that's for that. And today we're talking some rally stuff, like I said, with David Pearson and Kyle McCoy, and some of their experiences and what they've been up to. So I'm excited to bring this to you guys. I found out a little bit about it and what was going on, and I was just absolutely stoked. I'm like, this is going to be rad. Again, the Dakar fever, just getting over that hangover, the Dakar hangover, right? It's been 12 days, 13 days of nothing but Dakar. And now all of a sudden it's over. So what do we do now? So I know there's a lot of people, especially with the performance that the American teams, the American riders like Mason Klein, Ricky, Skyler, everybody that went over there and the effort that they put into that rally to perform and do what they do. is absolutely getting bigger. And now seeing them in the top 10 constantly on stages and then finishes, it definitely, the sport is growing. We are behind as far as rally raid goes, but we're going to find out some more about all of that here in just a sec. So let's bring these guys on. David, Kyle, you guys there?
We're here. Thanks for joining.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Hello.
David, welcome. All right. So I tried not to give too much away in the intro. I didn't do the name. I didn't know what the project was about, but I figured we'll talk a little bit about this.
You're good like that, Victor. It's part of the reason I listen to your podcast, because I'm not really sure what I'm going to get.
trying to be smooth. All right, let's move this over. All right. Okay, so first and foremost, I met both of you guys at Baja Rally. That was, 3, 4, 5 years ago almost?
Pushing 5 for me.
Yeah.
I'd 5 at least, yeah.
Yeah. Time flies.
Yeah. Well, we were
7.
just talking about, David and I, about how you were the calm voice at the start line for a young rookie like myself trying to get out there and get into the sport. And so all the work you put in was very much appreciated. And you always had this calm demeanor that would sort of, help me to relax as I'm going into what at the time scared me half to death.
Yeah.
I know. I was freaking out. I'm like, what's a tulip, man? I don't, what do you mean? I got to reset an Odo. I need to just calm down, follow your road book. You'll be good. Oh, yeah, you were definitely the calming in the storm that was the Baja. And that was my second rally after doing the Sonora. And you really kind of made it work for me. So I appreciated that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it was definitely a lot of fun, and I definitely enjoyed working with you guys, and the side of from the organization side, and then with the racers, it was as much stress as sometimes it is running the events and helping and doing all of that stuff, that, to be able to go in the bivouac and just, hang out with you guys and just chat. And it's like, you kind of almost forget that there's this whole rally raid going on and all of this stuff going on. And you guys are just, gassing each other over the day's performance and, bench racing and all of that. So that was always fun to see.
I feel like I have been chasing Victor all summer because I've gotten into reading and listening to all of your podcasts, and then it seems to be like, I don't know, it started with Happy Dave, and then you did Chris at Rottweiler, and so then I showed up to the Rottweiler factory and I got a great tour by Chris, and then you did Ace Nielsen, and so he and I at HDA have been talking the last couple of months for sure. And then Scotty Bloom with Baja, and then I raced with him. Well, we rode together at the SoCal rally, and then then it was Paul Neff and Jimmy Lewis, and I had dinner with those guys and Andrew Short. So I just seem like I'm just chasing you. So every podcast you do, I'm going to make an effort to like connect with the guy, whoever that is. It's and then Mason Klein, who's just been the kid and the rock star here this last year, and we got to ride with him at the SoCal rally for his fundraiser, and
Nice.
Kyle and I both got to ride with him up in Wyoming at the Wyoming run. So that was, it's cool to see how well he has moved along the process. It's impressive.
It is. It's like, I love the fact, and I mean, and for those that were close to him, know he didn't really come out of nowhere, because racing is in his family and everything. But like, to the rest of the world, this kid came out of nowhere, which is awesome. An awesome story. Quick shout. Speaking of Baja Rally, quick shout out. Looks like Scotty is in and tuning in with us. So for everybody there.
Yo, Scotty.
I can only see this thing doesn't let me to type the responses live, so I got to do it. On
Scotty's up. So when Scotty showed up for the SoCal rally, and that was my first year doing the SoCal rally, they did a great job. And it was the first time I actually got to like see Scotty on a motorcycle riding, and he clearly gets the game, and he knows that, you pull up to him and he's like, you got to figure it out, dude. I'm not the guy. You don't come to me looking for where you want to go. It's in the road book. And so I think, and maybe he'll tell you, but I think he intentionally like hid around the rock once in a while so that, when it was a tough section, you just couldn't rely on him to figure it out. So it was kind of cool to just rip around with him a little bit, the SoCal side. So
the rally tricks, seeing how people react to notes and stuff like that, if you figure it out, because then it's bad if you go hide behind a rock and then everybody does figure it out and you thought you had it right. They're off to the sunset. But it's good. Very good. Okay, so that's where I met you guys first, but where did you guys get started in rally? Kyle?
That's where I got started. Well, let me clarify. I got started by an introduction. First of all, I think I'm probably a little bit later to the sport than a lot of folks. I was sort of never really rode growing up. Went in the Army, didn't have time to ride. Got out of the Army, went to school, and started in my 30s, believe it or not. And so I've only been riding about maybe 10 years. And I got to give a shout out to Alex Martins at Conflict Motorsports, who really sort of shepherded me along into the sport. He told me what I needed to do to get started, and he recommended Baja Rally. He set me up with a bike. We went down, and that was my first event. First formal event, I should say. I didn't really have any training. I just sort of dove in, which was not pretty. I can promise you that. And that's why your voice was so calming in that sort of firestorm that I was entering into. But, to be fair, I did have a lot of experience with navigation. I think just coming from the military, as an Army Ranger, I had to navigate. I had to know exactly where I was going at all times. And so that part came very naturally. To me, the part that did not come naturally was the riding skills. And that tends to be the opposite, is what I gather from a lot of riders. They're great riders, and then they learn navigation after the fact. And so from there, I was hooked. And, I'm the type of person that once I really enjoy something, I sort of go deep and dive in. And quickly did Africa Eco Race, which was a major step up, a two-week, the old route from Monaco now used to be Paris down to Dakar, Senegal, and multiple other races. And then I met David at Baja Rally. As I was improving and getting a little bit quicker, then I sort of started to see his dust at least. And so that's kind of how I met David.
Yeah. I know David and brother Jim are a tough act to catch.
We have battled most of our adult life on motorcycles, and those, at least in our mind, those battles are legendary. Sometimes in others they're not. But I remember when we were running in the Rocky Mountain Enduro circuit, and we didn't get into racing motorcycles till our mid-20s. I've been riding motorcycles since 14, but we started doing the RMEC, and we were in the 4-stroke B class on XR 400s, if you remember that hunk of beautiful machine. And it was the last race of the season, and we were 1 point apart from winning.
Oh, boy.
And so the intensity at the pit was crazy. And Jim and I love him. We do all of our prep together and work on bikes together. And my brother's far more a mechanic than I am, and so he does a lot of stuff. And the last race of the season, we're 1 point fighting for a championship. It was like, don't touch my fucking tool. Get away from me. Like, don't do this, right? And so Jim and I bicker very well, and he's it's just it's awesome to play with that. But and Kyle, in meeting Kyle, you realize that this guy has just done some amazing stuff. And I joke, and I don't think he takes the creed that, even in my press release, I said, running the Malimoto class at the Dakar is kind of like doing the Iditarod without a dog sled, right? And then like Kyle's like ran the Iditarod without a dog sled. I'm like, you're the guy, and I think you've done some pretty amazing hard 100-mile plus endurance races across deserts in the world. And so it's just to hear some of Kyle's stories are very inspiring in the big picture. But I've been racing a long time, but I didn't get into rally until really 2017. And as you know, I ran a couple of motorcycle dealerships, and I always tell people when I hire them, I'm like, if you love motorcycles and you just love riding them and you want to get into this business, well, don't expect to ride with your buddies on Saturday because you're working. And if you think you're going to Sturgis or a race, it's not happening, right? And so when you get into the industry, and because Victor, you're in it, you just don't get to ride motorcycles as much. And so my brother could smell that on me when I took over running the store in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And so he's like, we're going to go to this rally. And I'm like, what do you mean we're going to this rally? They're like, I found this thing and we're going down. And the first one we did was Sonora. And I'm like, okay, I haven't got time. I can't make this happen. He's like, well, I'm going to take care of it. So he drove the truck and trailer, and I kind of flew into Yuma and crossed the border and hopped on a bike and, spent a little bit of time with a road book trying to figure it out. And just came out of that just hooked. And I'm a guy that I don't pay attention to where I go sometimes. And to really follow a road book to that level was just an amazing challenge. And it changed the game for me racing wise, because I hadn't raced for really seriously for 8-9 years, and this just rehooked me. And it was about being fast, but it was about being consistent. It was about being strategic. It was about being a little bit political. It was about making it through the whole process, and that got me hooked so hard that I've just been deep down the rabbit hole ever since.
It was the interview in the bivouac with Matthew Glade. He brought that up. He's all, have you ever noticed how the used gear market for rally raid stuff is almost non-existent? So I feel like that has something to do with it. Oh, looks like Kyle jumped out. I'm doing some rally training here this weekend in Pahrump with the Kansas Freedom Rally guys. And then next week I got a couple of old customers from New Mexico that are coming out. And so my rally equipment, I'm like, I'm going to lend it to you so you can use it. And, in the process of doing that, the guy calls me. He's like, well, I got with Matthew at RMS and I bought it all and I've got it all set up and I'm good to go. And I'm like, yeah. So, once you get in, it's hard to get out because it's just so cool. So I think the big thing is that first time everything kind of starts, how should I say? It's that first time you start lining up the waypoints and you start lining up the notes and you start to figure out like, okay, all right, this isn't so bad. And then you miss a corner and then, you're off into the sunset. But you remember those first few that you're like, okay, this is actually kind of cool. I don't know where I'm going, but now I feel like I do.
It's hard to explain the feeling you get when you're on the right track, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, the frustration you get when you think you're on it, but you don't know you're on it, it really slows you down because you're like, do I make the decision to turn around and go back, or do I continue down whatever the road book says in distance before I determine that this is clearly the wrong way, right? And that's a tough decision to make in the efforts of doing the race, because you make the corner and you're like, okay, I got 2.2 kilometers and I don't think I made the right corner, and I'm at half a kilometer out. Now I'm I got to turn around. No, I should go. No, I shouldn't. It leaves you with a level of anxiety that I enjoy. So in my world, I like that. My brother and I talk all about decisions all the time, like how quickly or how slow do you make a nav decision to correct what you're doing. Like watching the Dakar these days on day 2 with Ricky and all the boys got lost. I'm like, man, that had to be so frustrating for 35, 40 minutes of, I don't know where I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for those playing the home game, what we're talking about is, so imagine when your significant other tells you to meet them in the mall and they're feeding you directions of where they're at. Yeah, I'm right next to the bench by the tree. Okay. I'm just going to keep circling until I find said tree and bench. So I think that's the I feel like that's kind of accurate. Some people don't know how to draw maps either. So let's see. Let's check in here. What do we got? I got a couple questions here. So where are you guys at right now in the world?
I'm in Vegas. I'm at the American International Motorcycle Show for dealers and vendors. I sold my 2 dealerships, but I'm helping out a national dealer association get off the ground. So I'm running a booth. I'm like the booth babe for a couple of days at the Las Vegas Convention Center. That's where I'm at.
Nice.
Kyle?
I'm in Seattle, and as those from the Northwest know,
yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. A little garbled, but we can hear you.
Yeah, for those that know Pacific Northwest,
I can't hear him.
Not the best time to ride right now. So I'm in Seattle.
Okay, so tuning in from Seattle. It'll come back in right now in a minute, David. I'm sure. Okay, so we got that one, and then Troop is asking, what did you do in the Army, Kyle? What were you? If you can discuss it.
Yeah, no, of course. No, I was in the Ranger Regiment, so I was an Army Ranger, but I was not the guy, kicking indoors. I was sort of the geek back. I was a military intelligence officer, which is an oxymoron. Military intelligence don't really go together usually, but that was my job. And I did 01 to 05, 4 tours in Afghanistan, busy time, got a little burned out, and then got out.
All right. Well, thank you for your service, and
thank you.
And it sounds like so you got some training and some navigation. I mean, you brought obviously some of those skills are helping you here in the rally raid world.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the navigation is it came naturally, hard earned, certainly in the Army, but it came naturally, and also the distance. We did a lot of stuff in meters and kilometers, right? So I think a lot of Americans, it takes a little bit of time to transition from miles to the metric system. And I was a runner also, as David sort of alluded to, did a lot of long distance, sort of 100-mile plus type races. And so that part also came naturally. So I can convert pretty quickly and sort of feel the distance pretty easily. I think, whereas it takes a little time to transition to that.
Yeah. Well, and you're right, because everything is everything being in kilometers, meters, is definitely, if you have to keep checking the odometer and you kind of don't have a feel for it, or it says 2 kilometers up the road, you can kind of, I'm guessing you probably look up and you can almost pick a spot and go right about there. Yeah.
I'm not perfect at it, but I do have a sense at it. And another person that was really good at training on this is Jimmy Lewis, which most folks, one of this call is going to know who that is, but he's excellent at training sort of dists and feeling of distance, and spends a lot of time on that. And I took his class as well.
I can't really hear Kyle very well, but I don't know if I'm interrupting, but one of the things that I took away from Kyle that I'd never really done is riding my motorcycle by line of sight, right? To say, hey, I'm going 12, 10, 4 kilometers off piste, completely off trail at 187 degrees, and that you had to pick that point in the horizon, and that was where you were going to go, even though you may veer right and veer left and over the mountain and through the ravines and stuff. You had to keep that in your view, and that navigation really made a big difference for me.
Yeah, and then that was I don't know why it's Kyle, can you hear David?
I can hear him well. Yes.
Okay. David, can you hear Kyle? He just said yes. David, you hear me? Uh-oh. Ladies and gentlemen, it looks like we are experiencing technical difficulties. All right.
The challenges of a 3-person podcast from 3 different places.
I know. It wasn't doing this before, so I don't know what's going on. Yeah, we can hear you.
Victor?
Yes. Yes, we are here. Uh-oh. He may have to try again. Maybe it's the hotel Wi-Fi. Oh, he jumped out. Okay, Kyle. So we were talking, being able to judge distances, and you mentioned about Jimmy Lewis and how he does his stuff.
Yeah, he's got, there are a lot of classes. I'm big on forever learning. And he's got a great class on this, which I would recommend anyone trying to get a sport is to take his class, navigation and rally training.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned from him, no question.
Nice. David, you back on?
I'm here. Yep.
All right, cool. And can you hear Kyle now again, or is it still?
I do, yeah. 5G isn't what they really promoted out to be, I guess.
I don't know. Ears ringing and then airplanes crashing, I hear, is what the next is. I have my tinfoil hat. We're good to go. Or no, it's a Faraday cage. That's what it is. I'm busy converting my house to a Faraday cage.
Awesome.
All right. So, okay, let's, all right, Michael. Oh, no. Now Kyle jumped out. All right. It's the rounding round.
This is how it's going to play.
Yeah. We're just taking turns. All right. Michael, he is Montana, rally capital of the U.S. I hope to find that out. What do you think, David? Is he true? Is it true?
If there's a rally in Montana, I would love to go. The PJ who does Wyoming is phenomenal. And if there were routes, and I have been fortunate enough to be traveling this last summer all along the mountain range of the west side of the Rockies, and so I've been looking for routes for people that have created that I can add to or do. And so if you got one in Montana, shoot it to me. I have been creating routes all over the place, and so if you feel like you want to try one, I made a really cool one out of Washington for Kyle and Paul Neff, and making road books is a huge way to increase your understanding of these rallies and your ability to run them effectively. And the first couple I made, I got here's a 200 kilometer one, and at like kilometer 13, I was lost. And, and I made it, and you'd think I'd know where I'm going. And so after you make a few, and I know Kyle mentioned Jimmy Lewis, and Jimmy's awesome because he's hardcore in the sense that you don't get to play on his rally routes unless you make one. And so it gives you, and Rally Navigator these days, and Mike Shirley is really advanced, and it's not overly complicated to make them. It's just a process and the effort to run it and then clean it up and do it right, so
nice.
But they're cool. They're so, and you can do it on your dual sport. I ran a Harley business, and so when I got into it, I went back and I made a rally route for my Harley guys, and it was totally street, and here's go 2.2 miles and take a right, and then 3.2 miles and take a left, and you really differentiate the guys that can do it and the guys that can't really quickly.
Yeah, they start picking up on the different notes and distances. Yeah, I could see some guys get into it, and I had this discussion when I was at BMW, and it was like, some people, they like the road book thing, and others, just give me a GPS line. All right. And Kyle is back. Kyle, you hear us?
Yeah, I'm back. I hear you.
All right.
If you haven't asked Kyle in the breaks of these questions, Kyle has clearly stepped into the historian level of our team. As I think you guys have said, we're out to go to the Dakar next year to break a record, I guess, as it may be, or to be one of the very first Americans to ever finish in the Malay Moto class, right? In the 45-year history of the Dakar, no American has ever finished in the Malay Moto class. And Kyle has been our historian that has really tracked a lot of the efforts of Americans through the Dakar. And it's amazing how little effort and how much action is happening just these last couple of years with Americans in the Dakar.
Yeah. So that's perfect transition. So let's get into that. So what we're here to talk about. So ARO, Team ARO, American Rally Originals. What are you guys doing? What's the project?
I'll hit a bit of this, and then I'll let Kyle, because Kyle's kind of been our, I don't know, inspirational leader. He's been a bit of the catalyst that got us all on this ticket. And, we're really a team of individuals that are going to the Dakar to compete in the Malle Moto class. They now call it the original bimoto, but it's really Malle Moto. And for rally guys, they know, and for some of them that don't, Malle Moto is truly the hardest class of the hardest race in the world, and predominantly because you really can do it with minimal to no support. They give you one trunk or a box to put your stuff in, and you have to do the race. At the end of the day, you got to show up, you got to do all your mechanics, all your maintenance, you got to get your stuff ready. They make you sleep in a tent with a sleeping bag, and then you get up in the morning and you do it again, right? It's hard. And to really do that for us logistically, our team effort helps us all get there. And our goal is to put all 5 of us, everybody we can, to the finish line of Malle Moto at Dakar next year. Nice. That's the American Rally Originals.
Okay. So running the Malle Moto class. And yeah, so for, as we always say, or I always say, so for those playing the home game, if you watch the Dakar, follow the Dakar, you would have seen, you see the top factory teams. They got tents, they got mechanics, they got these real bitch and pit setups and all of that. And then somewhere off in the bivouac in the distance in this group is the Originals guys. And the Originals guys are basically, they're their own mechanic, they're their own masseuse, chef, I don't know, tire changer. Well, no, I think they can get tires changed, but for the most part, it's a solo mission. So it's you versus the Dakar. With the help of your fellow class or fellow competitors. They do have a stricter regulation on who can help you. I think there are certain parts of it that you can get assistance on. I don't know if the tire thing still exists where you can have like your tires done by somebody else, but everything else you got to do on your own. So if there's road book meetings or if there's anything, you got to be present. It's not, you can't send your team principal to go and handle the business for you. So it is a very difficult and very challenging thing. I know Lyndon Poskett has a really good documentary about it where you can see a little bit more about what it takes, but that's what you guys are signing up for.
Yeah, that's right. And you're right, Victor. The tire change is the one thing that sort of you don't have to do anymore. But otherwise, you're doing it all on your own. And I could tell you, having done the Dakar fully supported in 2020 and finishing, I looked over at those guys and sort of felt guys and gals, I should be clear about that. And I think to myself, those are some tough people. The last thing I wanted to do was work on a bike. I guarantee you, after a 12-hour day. So that's the goal. And the inception of this, you guys were starting to go down this path on the history. Is I dug into the history of it, and the race is roughly 45 years old. There's a year or two it didn't happen, namely when it transitioned from Africa to South America. But in general, just think 45 years old. Mm-hmm. There have been 34 distinct Americans that have finished the race. Some of them, obviously, multiple times. We're standing on the shoulders of folks that have done this many times and helped us. And to this day, it's sort of a great alumni community. But the group needs to expand still, and that's our goal. And I also knew in my research that no American had ever finished, even to this day, Malle Moto, even though there's been one attempt. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, he crashed and didn't make it to the finish, but there's been one attempt. So our goal is to finish and get as many of us across as possible. And I knew that my odds would improve the more of these guys I could recruit into taking on that challenge, because we can only, to David's point earlier, we can only support one another. We can't, there's no outside assistance. Yeah. So that's the idea.
Yeah. And Willem, thank you for the, so I did not know this. Malle means trunk in French. Of course.
Correct. Oui, oui.
Yeah. Oui, oui. Let's see. And then let's see what else we get. He's see Willem dropping some knowledge here. Let's see. Originals by Multool and Dakar this year. You can have your tires done. There's also physios, etc. Main thing is you have to work on the bike yourself. So, which is a big chunk.
Right. That's
Very
right. Williman seems to be tracking it, but there's no there's no physio necessarily for Dakar. I'm sorry, for Malimoto or Originals by Motul folks. Now the factory teams have physios, but to my knowledge, there's not sort of a setting for physios in the Malimoto group.
If physio means I get a massage once in a while, I'm in.
Yeah.
I just want to say that now. I'm in.
So okay, now I've changed my mind. Full send. We're all the way in. And you know, it's interesting too. That was another one too. Troop mentioned that too. That why the ASO keeps eroding. The only pure class left in Dakar. And yeah, I mean, this is basically how it got started. Everybody was in Malimoto before. There was no, the factory teams meant that there was a big truck with a lot of parts and a lot of sponsors 1, 2, 3 days behind them in hopes that they would make it to the bivouac to help repair the bikes. But yeah, it's obviously it's changed a lot in the way that it is. And I think there's another one, another event to the Kota Rally. They're bringing that. They're focusing on that Malimoto class right now to start, and doing a really good job about it. I think that's the first 100% legal, permitted, ready to go rally here stateside. So that's,
work side. We're a number of us are hoping to be there for that because my brother Jim helped them a little bit on the rally comp side with Johnson to get some of that going. And there were for a lot of us, there were just a lot of restrictions to that Kota rally, but in his view of it, the restrictions were minor enough that when it really came down to it, it was still a really good, solid race. That even with some of the speed limit restrictions through some of the areas, it wasn't really a factor. And that I think if there's a rally you want to do in the United States, and this is the only one, it's going to be the Kota rally. And if you haven't got it on your calendar, you should put it there, because just Colorado and Utah is just some phenomenal terrain and ground to ride any way it goes. And the fact that they've managed to get the Forest Service and everybody else on board to let this happen is a feat unto of itself. It's just, it's hard. I ran a tour company out of Colorado for years, and there's just no way in hell they'd give you an outfitter's license to be able to take people riding like that. And what he's done is a whole lot of work to get there, and it'd be well worth to go if you can find the time and the energy.
It is definitely on the list to make it out there, and maybe not. I don't know if to run it, but definitely at least to hang out with these guys and maybe help and interrupt as much as I cannot.
Yeah.
So let's see. All right, Mike. Hi. How are you? And then there's. So okay. So we already know. So no Americans have ever finished in the Malimoto class in the 45-year history. That was correct, Kyle?
That's correct.
Okay. So then you guys already kind of mentioned it a couple times, but who's on the team so far?
Our team compile as Kyle and myself. We have my brother Jim, who's going to be also on that team, and Jim's been a multiple AA class enduro champion for years, and has run Vegas to Reno and the Baja Ironman, and then a bunch of podium finishes from the Sonora and Baja, and he's clearly our most mechanical apt individual, and so he's really tackling a lot of the bike prep and setup world for us. Morrison Hart, Mo Hart, which I'm assuming you know as well, has joined us as well, and Mo's. It's interesting as I've gotten to get to know this team so much better. Mo's a cool guy, and he is a guy that just finishes every time, right? He's got the fortitude to make it finish. And, he chased a bit of the Olympics on the U.S. sailing team for a number of years, and to hear some of his stories are pretty cool. And then he shifted to rally, and he's had a lot of top 10 finishes at Sonora and Baja, and he's just that guy. So he's kind of our top logistics expert in the big world. And then you've already interviewed our last guy, which is Paul Neff. Paul's probably the youngest of the group. Paul's a multi-time ISDE gold and silver medalist, a AA enduro rider. At the 2020 Sonora, he was the class winner. And he also does the Jimmy Lewis training program up in Washington at Cispus Cycles. So he's a talented guy, and he is, if you talk to him right now, he's so fired up. He's in the gym 6, 7, 8 days a week. And he's putting everything together to make this happen. So it's a cool team. We've really kind of assembled that, our goal is to finish this event. Right. And it's the attrition at the Dakar is pretty strong.
Yeah.
And so we got to get through that hurdle first, and then whatever happens from there is gravy for us.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Get the team to the line, which is cool. I mean, that, I don't think there would be anything better to have all of you guys, even ride in as a group at the very end. I think that would be the pinnacle of this whole thing.
That's the goal. And if you put each of our skills together, as David was sort of alluding to, we're sort of like, the best of each of us might be 10 places behind Braybeck or Short or Mason, so that's the idea, is we get as many of us across the finish line as possible. It's really hard. Just to give a sense for the scale of the difficulty, the Boss Dakar support team, which supported me, they supported Skylar Howells, they supported Mason, Bart Vandevelden, who runs it, said, look, it's 2 to 3 times harder than doing it in a supported way. And the reality is you're just so exhausted. And to the extent you can minimize exhaustion and fatigue, the better off you are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So somebody's doing, it's just simple things and working together as a team. And that's, I think that's probably the best thing in the Malamoto side of it. I've seen where, like, I think we had were they well, I think he proposed on the finishers podium, but having teammates, having people there to help, because somebody could be, all right, you're on oil changes today, or you're on this today, or whatever it is, and then everybody works together, and in the end, it makes it a little bit easier. Even just that little bit, even if it's not a lot, but just that little bit, I'm sure adds up after a few days.
We were. I'm assuming you saw the highlights of the Dakar that came out, and the gentleman that won the car class. I never say his name right. Altier, Alicia, whatever. Did you see the last day that his teammate left 9 minutes before him, pulled over, waited for him, and then trucked in behind him to see him finish the race and win? Right.
Yeah.
So
Nasser, Nasser Alatia.
Nasser, yeah, Nasser, and so. You talk about some of the strategy that those team guys have to get the right guy across the line.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we've gotten to that level yet of that conversation, but there's enough. The 5 of us that are in this understand that part of it is, even though we're a team of individuals on the race course, in the heat of it, we're going to help each other out as much as we possibly can to get us all coming across that line. And that excites me a lot, just as a team, just to be an individual racer and still know that there's 4 other guys that have my back and are going to help. And, Kyle jokes he's going to need the help in the mechanic area. And, I need the nav, and, we're all going to do our best to keep up with Paul and keep him, moving along. And, it's just, it's kind of a eclectic group of guys that are going to pull this together and make it happen. And there's a lot of logistics and planning to get there. I can tell you. So.
I can only imagine. I only know how to help plan like a small portion of a rally. So I can't imagine, 5 bikes and all the other, and then not only that, but traveling internationally and just getting everything over there. This is a very big undertaking. Let's let me see.
The awesome part is, so, we shot out a press release yesterday, and we know we need a year plus of true effort to put all the pieces together. And the outpouring of support that's happened just in the last day has just been, it's been amazing. Willem's online. The guys that are like, this is cool, and we want to see you do it, and we're ready to support you. And, we're already seeing GoFundMe stuff, and we're not even, it's a year out from now. And, and, to see, even Mason, who, emailed back and said, this is awesome, looking forward to seeing it, has been pretty cool. We've already stepped into Climb has stepped up and said, we've got your back and we're going to be your gear sponsor for this event. And, and so we're working through a lot of those pieces already. It's you can't get a better group of people and a better industry to play in than this one. I just have never in my life been so impressed with it. It's awesome.
Yeah. That I think it's really cool to see because, where else, I'm going to run the Baja 1000 or I'm going to run this. And you got a couple of buddies and all that stuff, but you don't have other teams necessarily or manufacturers, running right after you to do it. It goes to show the whole like bivouac thing, right? Where everybody, it's all rally family and the racing only happens after the DSS, when you're on the stage. Anytime before and after that is, you're right back to it. Everybody, your competitor is your friend and everybody just gets along. I mean, that's the funnest times in a rally event are literally in the bivouac, before and after. So this is really awesome to see.
Doing motocross and hair scrambles and enduros is, 20 something. Like you go to a motocross race, it's 2 15-minute motos, you load up the van and you go home, right? Like nobody ever really connected. And then, that happens in the enduro on the national level and you show up on, late Saturday, you race Sunday, you go back to work and you're like, okay, I raced this guy and he beat me and I don't know who he is. And to do this event, you spend the night you spend 4 or 5 nights with the guy that's beating you and you bond and you get connected at a different level that normal racing just doesn't provide. And it's hard to explain. Just go. It's hard to explain.
Yeah, exactly. It's even if buy the bivouac pass and just go hang out. And if you don't know anybody there, find me if I'm there, and we'll meet a bunch of people.
Victor, was it the Baja? Do you remember the guy on the modified BMW? He put motocross suspension on. He came in last every event, every day. The bike was broken. He'd show up at 8 o'clock at night. Like 12 of us would all walk around his bike and help him get it back together, and then he would go again. I don't remember the guy's name, but
Casey Hillard. he was on the 12. It was the 1200. It's the HP. It's the HP2.
HP. Yeah.
Which the BMW purists, if they knew what he was doing with that bike, would string him alive from some post, the highest one they could find. But he beat the hell out of that bike. He actually won the class that year. The last time I saw him down there in that thing. But he's full send on that. Let's take a quick sec. I want to jump. There's a couple questions here that caught my eye. Okay, so let's see. Scroll up here. Ace, welcome. Let's see. Yes, so the Africa Eco Race is the old. Basically, it's the old Dakar. That's probably got to. I feel like that's got to sting because now literally they're finishing Dakar. So. The Africa Eco Race is basically taking most or a lot of the area that the original, the OG Dakar used to do. Let's see. Michael Jordan asked earlier, David, what is the secret to cresting a big dune? And is there an inside story to this?
You said I was allowed to swear, yes. So I guess nuts isn't swearing, but the first time I did it, I fell up the dune and down the dune. I had sand in every crack and every crevice of my body, and it wasn't. And I much like the Baja, I went into it without any pre-running, and so dunes were a whole new thing for me. And so I just didn't know how to ride them, and I would roll all the way up to the top, and then I'd freak out and I'd turn the throttle off and the thing would stop at the top, not over the top, just at the top. Mm-hmm. And then you had to drag the bike down and roll all the way back down and then try it again. And then you realized after a little bit of help from the other guys and watching some people do it, it's like surfing. You have to learn. It's like a combination of surf and snowboard. Mm-hmm. And you have to learn to hammer up that thing. And just before the top, you kind of bank off to the one side and jump onto the other side and then keep going, right? It's a ballet dance, for lack of a better word. And once you get the motions in place and you can pick your lines correctly, then it becomes substantially easier. And then it's just a function of how tall is the dune, and can the bike and the motor and you really make it over the top. But once I figured out how to crest the top of that dune, your confidence level goes through the roof. But it was a learning experience. The good side is it's at least a bit of a soft landing.
Yeah.
On both sides. There's clearly, it gets dangerous for some of it because it could get really hard, and depending on the wind and the crest of the dune, it can hurt. But if you're going slow, it's a soft landing. And once you get the game of it, then you can bring up your confidence level to go a little faster. And then it just becomes like any other motorcycle piece. The faster you go, the more dangerous it ultimately gets, and you got to find that balance. But I liken it a lot to somewhat my world of snowboarding and surfing. And when you put those two things together, and then you're just riding the wave, once you learn that is really nothing more than a wind wave, then it becomes infinitely a lot easier.
Yeah. You start to understand the shapes.
And by the way, what David is describing, you go out and give it a try if you haven't done it many times. First of all, it's hard to access dunes in the U.S., which is a whole different discussion. But the point being that if you watch Braybeck, Short, Howells, Mason go through those dunes, once you've experienced it, you watch them do it, and you're like, dear God, how do they go through the dunes at the pace that they do? When the downside, especially when you get into rolling dune section, where then you come up and all of a sudden you've got a knife edge dune and it sneaks up on you, you can get really cocky and you'll be put in your place very, very rapidly. I promise you that. But the place, as you know, Victor, the place here, there's multiple small dunes, obviously not so much small, but they're just the scale of them in terms of the width and the total kilometers covered isn't that large. You have to really go to sort of Sonora Rally to really experience the dunes like you'll have at Dakar. Yeah.
I've heard the war stories of the dunes at the Sonora Rally, and that I'm not going to use the word that people were impressed necessarily, because I think they found a lot of colorful 4-letter words to describe how their day went in the dunes. But from what I hear, when people were coming back, that's what I'm hearing is Sonora Rally is the place for the big, the big Dakar-like dunes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think there's some dune stuff east of Washington where you live, Kyle, and then right on the Nevada-California border, there's a place called Dumont Dunes, and I'm taking a couple of guys out for training here next week there, and that gives you. I went there to at least practice some dune stuff once before I showed up to the race, and that helped a lot, because dune riding it's different than rock, it's different than sand wash, it's a different type of ride that you have to get a grip on, and like anything you do, the best way to do it is through some practice. And to Kyle's point, it's hard in the United States to catch that just for our terrain. And what Darren has put together at the Sonora Rally really will give you a really good feel for what the guys at the Dakar are doing constantly for 8-10 days of the 14 days of racing.
Yeah. I agree with that. I mean, if you have, you do have some of the top teams going down for that to check it out. And I mean, that's always, they don't show up to these events, by accident. Everything is calculated all the way through. But speaking of events, what do you guys have on the schedule for training? What events are you guys going to be hitting this year? Do you guys kind of have a plan for that already?
We do. We've been in the planning process for this for a number of months, and all of us decided that we weren't really going to announce this out till after the Dakar. We wanted to make sure everybody was supporting Ricky and Mason and Skylar and the gang, so you'll see the bulk of us at the Sonora Rally coming up here in a couple months if all goes well. And then we'll be hitting a number of events just to help us with some fundraising and activities, predominantly up in Wyoming. We'll be at the Kota Rally this year. A bunch of us will be out actually at the Tour Tech Rally up in Washington, just connecting with some of those guys. And so we'll be hitting a number of events just to either provide some help, some training, or really to keep our skill set strong. Kyle, who was on schedule for Africa Eco Race, I think that changed for you as of like today, did it not, Kyle?
About 12 hours ago, I got an email that said the Africa Eco Race has been delayed till October, which is a little too close to comfort for Dakar in January. So, so I'm currently figuring out what's the backup plan for that. But yeah.
Brother Jim will likely be at the Hellas Rally in Greece, and there's been some discussion about Rally du Maroc. As many of you, well, some of you know, or maybe you don't, the entry into the Dakar is a step within itself, right? And, the ASO runs the organization, and you have to be a FIM racer, and the FIM is really predominantly European. And so as an American, it's hard sometimes to qualify for the Dakar because of the restrictions they put on allowing racers that have experience, right? They just don't want a green guy coming off a motocross track and jumping in the Dakar because that's just a completely different race, right? I mean, take Andrew Short, who retired from his world at 30 and stepped into the rally world. I think it was 2017 in Sonora that Andrew had showed up for his first rally. And Andrew and I diced it up for 3 or 4 days because Andrew's fast. He is totally fast. But his first rally, he just didn't quite have the nav down. So he would go screaming by me, and then I'd make a couple of turns, and then boom, he'd go screaming by me again, and I'd make a couple turns, and he'd scream by me again. Right. And so we played that cat and mouse for a couple of days, and by the end of it, he was no longer screaming by me. He was just ahead of me. And you got to get a feel for that. So we have to get over the hump of the entry side of it. And sometimes the organization will put some events, take Mason. I think Mason got put in the spot where he had to go do Rally du Maroc in order to complete his entry into the Dakar, just because he was so green to the rally side of the game. The Sonora Rally, and Darren has worked very hard with the ASO and the organization to put on the Dakar Challenge portion of the Sonora Rally that allows that to be an event that will give you some qualifications and entries into the Dakar, right? So if you've done the Sonora, that's a good leader to allow you into the Dakar to do the race.
Okay.
So
it helps with the...
We're all freaking out because I think the Dakar organization has said next year they're pushing hard to be a digital road book environment, not the paper road books of the past. And so we're all going to have to learn that better than where we are right now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. With a few different options. So this is an interesting question. I mean, and speaking of qualifying and getting into the Dakar and doing that, but what are you guys planning on riding? Do you guys, is there a particular bike that you guys are after to do this on, or how's that going to happen, or how's that going to work?
I think that to be determined. I think the short answer is standby. Okay. We're working through those efforts to make that happen, and your choices are really to find yourself with a full-fledged rally motorcycle, or take a baseline 450 XC XCF and fit it up. And so we're working through some of those logistic challenges right now, and we don't quite have that completely dialed enough to say here's what we're going to be on and here's what we're going to do. And check with us in a couple of months as we kind of dial some of that in. But it's coming. It is one of the challenges from the American side of the game, is to show up there and, either deal with you take a Bastacar environment that Kyle was talking about. You can go there, rent the bike, do the event, and off you go. It's clearly a lot of Europeans that modify their motorcycles and bring them across the pond over there and make them happen as well. And so the logistics efforts financially for us to get a bike from the United States all the way to Saudi Arabia, add complexity. So we're looking at a couple of variable options that let us make this work, and we're just not quite there yet.
Gotcha. So let's see here. Somebody asked, are my eyes? Oh, okay. Yeah. So Willem, and I agree with Willem on this one. I feel like, I know they're pushing pretty hard on the digital roadbook thing, for upcoming. But I agree with him. He's saying that, they won't make it digital before they run, digital on the GP class for at least one race. So I feel like we might be safe for one more year, but for sure next year, I would imagine the Rally GP guys are going to be on digital road books for it. But I think everybody else may still be on, unless something happens this year where they all of a sudden they're able to prove it across a few different rallies, and then they say, okay, well, we'll go full send. But
yeah, and David and I were talking about this before. The reality is nobody knows. There has been a transition more digital. In the future, it will be digital, no question. It's just a matter of when. But there's a lot that can go wrong, obviously, with the digital setup. I can tell you that in 2020, which was the first when I did Dakar, that all liaisons were digital. So already the liaisons, which are a big component of, now they're not as complex, but they're a big component of navigating. And for those that don't know, that's just getting to the special or the actual race, and then from the end of the special stage to back to the bivouac. Those can be, 3 and 4 hour rides, and that's all digital. But so far, to your point, Victor, that has not happened. I'm of the mindset it will remain, old school paper road books this year, but who knows? Nobody knows yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I agree with Willem too. I think his thought process there is pretty solid, and reading through the Dakar, they clearly could make change that is what it is. I'm pretty confident most of the car classes were running digital within their cars. I've been running a digital road book. I ran it at SoCal, and I've been running them personally. So I've kind of adapted, and I'm excited about the digital. Luke over at ICO Racing has been developing their Tower 1 prototype, and so we're hopeful that we get some opportunity to test and play with those a little bit. To those guys at the high advanced level, we've always battled the fact that the pro guys have map men and they pay big dollars, and and they're trying to eliminate that advantage from the pro guys, and to roll up to a stage and have them load your road book for you 2 minutes before you go out or 10 minutes before you go out really levels the playing field for us privateer kind of people. And so it just, the question is the digital capable and consistent and rock solid enough to be effective for us on the motorcycle side? I don't know if we're there yet, and I think, to Willem's point, I'm not sure they would drive that level of change that quickly through the organization, but it's coming down the pipeline for sure. Matthew Glade, who's been an amazing supporter of us since day one when we kind of started talking about this, my RMS tower is now fully equipped with a Carpe Eider digital roadbook reader, and I'm hoping my Bluetooth connection always stays active, but it's been dependable at this point. I don't know what 15 days or 14 days of day-to-day abuse is going to do, but I'm excited to see that happen. I think it's after doing digital, I'm totally ready to stop rolling a road book and cutting, taping, and pasting. I can tell you that. So
yeah, I can imagine. Let's see. And then let's see. Oh, Ace just chimed in. Yeah, so I got a chance to see the new ICO Tower 1 at Sonora Rally this past year, and Ace looks like he's going to be running those again this year as well. And he's confirmed it's taken a few big hits and survived. I know it was Chris Parker from Rottweiler designed that breakaway type tower, like rally light setup for that 501 for Vest Van Nieuwenhuis. And so I think that combination on a rally light bike is kind of like the way to go for them, especially on these, because I mean I think the Tower One is fairly light compared to all the rally stuff. If you took the two setups and weighed them, plus it includes the cap and odometer in one shot, or in one device.
Yeah, and Chris admit that breakaway system that Chris made is really cool, and his dampener setup for how he did it is awesome. And if anybody knows Wes, he needs it because he's either he goes big or he goes home, and what that guy can do on a 790 at full rack speed is impressive. So
yeah, I was wishing that it was going to be the 790 at Sonora, but he did the 501 and did a good job, and I did hear him say, because I was at the finish line catching results for Rally Comp and the organization, and he was talking to Chris about it, and he took that thing to the chest, and he knew it did what it needed to do, because had it not, he would have paid for it. But he said it worked great, and just stood it back up, knocked it back to center, and it was money ready to go. So I'm curious to see.
What we're describing right now for those that are wanting to get into the sport, which we need more and more folks to get into it. It's so much fun once you give it a try, but it's daunting to get started. But you can do a rally using an iPad. It has to be a cellular enabled iPad. It doesn't have to be actually turned on, but it just have to have that system so that it can be cellular. You can use an old iPad and do everything. That's the cheapest way to give it a try. So I always tell people, if you want to give it a try, just get an iPad, use an app called Rally Blitz. That's the app to use. And there's a Rally Navigator, which is an amazing website to check out as well. And that's the way to just try it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and the Rally Navigator's got an app as well, Kyle, so either Blitz or Navigator will at least get you down the path.
Yeah, and I think it's I'm actually working on that, and I hadn't. But what I was going to start doing for people to start practicing is just come up in my free time, just start making routes on city streets, and for people to just randomly, here, download this GPX that's some route in San Diego that I designed, just in 10 minutes, and convert it to a road book, so people can get used to the idea of okay, this is how I import the GPX. This is, and okay, I want to put a turn here, and I need to put the tulips, and, so they can kind of see without having to go out and create an actual GPX if they don't already have one from a ride that they do. I figure that would help. But yeah, iPad, I don't know that I would ever do an actual competitive event on it, but as a recreational and getting started, 100%. I'd be on the marketplace or wherever, Craigslist, as long as it's not hot. And get, just find something, find one that'll work. And I think even the Android tablets, because I think that's what the Carpe Ater system is based on, is an Android tablet.
It's totally a hardened, industrialized Android tablet. To some degree, you start adding stuff to it, and it gets a little bit like how much, at one point, I think I put the SIM card in and my phone worked. So I could have had it could have been a phone for me. Some of that stuff I've dialed back, but it is an Android tablet that they have industrialized and then put the right software on to make it work. And then I just run a Bluetooth controller on my handlebar for scrolling and Odo adjustments and everything else. And so it's it works. It works very well. I'm not sold on it as an event activity, and I think the stuff that Luke and Tower One is doing is purpose built and far more industrial designed, and I love it because you can actually, if shit goes bad, you can still use it just as Tower One if your controller breaks off your handlebars. And so they've definitely been thinking through it, and their prototypes are looking pretty solid. And I'm excited to see what they're going to look like in the next couple of years. And you know, Ace is right. He's right there, and he's on the edge. And so I think the more of us that start to feed that for him and make that viable financially to produce those things, then to Kyle's point, we just need a few more people in the rally circle to play with us, and it's going to make everything better.
Yeah, that's the plan between these podcasts, the teams, and everything, and getting more and more people, and that's what we're seeing. I mean, we are seeing the growth in it. You know, everybody's kind of starting to come together and starting to grow the local side of things. And you know, I was out at Mason's fundraiser in Vegas with Happy Dave, and you know, people that heard the podcast were there, and you know, one guy that I met, and so it's people that have been curious, but you know, it's the same thing. It's like you walk up and you don't know who to talk to or what to do, or you know, where the events are and what's going on. So the more we can spread the word.
Happy Dave's just awesome, and he's he's a maven, right? He's the guy that connects the guy that connects the guy, right? Like, you know, Happy Dave's like, what are you doing? I'm like, going to this motorcycle expo. He's like, oh, really? I'm like, I got this guy that runs the International Motorcycle Show. He needs some lube. Will you take it to him? I'm like, listen, Happy, one man bringing another man lube is not cool. So I can't, I just, you know, and so
I feel like there's a written rule somewhere about this.
Yeah. So I'm at the, motorcycle show going, hey, where's this guy, Mike? I got to give him some lube. And so we ultimately had a good conversation, but I'm like, I just love Happy because he makes it, he just makes it easy. So
yeah, absolutely.
He's passionate.
Yeah. So speaking of finding people and doing that kind of stuff, and getting together, where can we get you guys? Where can people find out more about the team and what you guys are doing, and maybe even help out?
So if you're web friendly, if you just remember AmericanRallyTeam.com, that at this point will link directly to our Facebook page, which we've just brought online and brought active. So we're all trying to figure out how to content into it, but you could certainly search for us on Facebook. We've established the GoFundMe site to help us with some of the fundraising aspect of this. As you know, if you watch Skylar's overview on the Dakar, the efforts for him as a privateer to make this work was daunting, and we recognize that that's the case as well. We're all committed to go, but between those two places, that's probably the first big swing. We can't thank you enough, Victor, for really giving us a bit of the option to just talk about that. And we've already seen the support. Matthew Glade at RMS has really stepped up, and Climb, Mark Kincart has really made things happen for us. And so, we are there, and we're ready to roll. And we know it's a long effort to get us there, and we appreciate everybody's support in making it happen. And so that'd be the first two places. You can hit me up at david@rideventure.com, and that's an easy one. And I'll if I can connect some dots or help some people out or do something, whatever you need. So clearly come join us at an event, whether it's Sonora, SoCal, whether it's the Cotal Rally. If you're up in Washington, come play at the Tour Tech stuff, and we'll figure it out. So it'd be awesome. So
nice. Yeah, and I've got if those that are tuned in, the links for the website / Facebook page are in the description if you guys check that below, and then also a link for the GoFundMe as well. There's a link in the video description as well that's live already, so you guys can check that out if you guys want to get in and help the team. And so, all right. So closing thoughts. What are you doing, Kyle? Still with us?
Yeah, I'm here. Well, first of all, I appreciate your just what you're doing, Victor. Just in general, I would say, as I look at the history of the race, it's astounding how this has grown and grown and grown. And again, we're standing on the giants of the people that came before us. And there were periods of time where Americans had zero entries in Dakar, and that should never be the case. The most that have finished in 1 year is 5. Our goal is to easily outpace that this next year, to have the most in history to finish Dakar, just between us sort of jokers and then the pro guys up front, and look up the history. Also, to David's point, Rally Moto Shop is probably the best location where all of this is in one place. Check out Jimmy Lewis and his school. There's others. Scott Bright has been really good about training. And then those races in North America that we discussed, Sonora Rally, Baja Rally, and the local sort of get-togethers. And we appreciate any and all support.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'll leave you with these 3 words: relentless forward momentum.
That sounds like how you crest the dune. Somebody just said that.
Relentless forward momentum.
Mm-hmm. Very, very true. You just keep going. If not, if you can't see the rest of it, what was it? I just heard about this book. They said, I can't see through the forest. It's all, well, can you see your next step? Yeah. Okay. We'll take the next step. So
yeah, we're just going to get up and keep going. So our goal is relentless forward momentum. And if you can do that, you can survive the Dakar.
Yeah. Yeah, it's only 14 days now.
Oh God!
The better analogy I always tell people is just to give a sense of scale.
Mm-hmm.
It is like riding from Seattle. Everyone knows the U.S. map, from Seattle to New York City and back. Turn around and ride back to Montana. That's the distance that folks travel during this period. Now, there have been longer and shorter, but on average these days in Saudi Arabia, that's the distance. So it's daunting, but to David's point, it's fun. And challenges are like that, or what you remember when you're old, and you're not going to remember that Ford F-150 you bought when you were, 30 some odd years old. You're going to remember going and doing this race. Guarantee that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
The old adage, which was like, he with the most toys dies, wins, right? I've changed that. It's really he with the most worn out toys wins, right? You gotta experience the adventure of it, because that's what makes this happen. It's my wife and I always have measured our vacations by the sphincter factor, right? So we'd be like, well, what was that on the sphincter factor? I'm like, that was an 8.9, honey, and now I got to return this Jeep rental with this big gash in it. And our pictures are wonderful, and then there's a break in them, and then they're wonderful again, because that critical moment where we had a challenge is what made our vacation or our trip or our adventure happen. And it's these critical moments that define who we are and make it work. It's just it's the difference. It's cool. Mm-hmm. It's awesome.
Yep. There you go. All the challenges and stringing them all together.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. All right, guys. Well, yeah. So we'll the links are there. The video is literally live right now, so we can share it, and then I'll probably get a couple of audio cuts out of it, and we'll get it some of the excerpts on this weekend's podcast as well. So looking forward to it, and I guess I'm sure we'll check in this year, see how you guys are doing, catching up with you guys.
That sounds great.
Yeah. Excellent. All right, guys. Well, you guys have a good night, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Victor.
Yeah, of course. See you, David. All right, so there you have it. American Rally Originals. So AmericanRallyTeam.com. The links are down below in the description. Let me move. Let's see if I move over. How's the lighting? Lighting a little better there. So pretty cool. So I'm absolutely stoked to see this. This is great. Now more Americans, more people headed to Dakar from a country where rally raid is not necessarily the predominant, right? Where it's like soccer here, right? Soccer is popular in the rest of the world, but rally, not as much here. Rally raid is kind of the same thing. A lot of these countries, they grew up racing. They didn't have the Baja races with the markers and the ribbons and stuff like that telling people where to go. It was all about road books. So One thing that I some knowledge and that I heard, and Mason kind of alluded to this in one of his interviews with the media out at Dakar, but I've also heard it in other places before, is that, you know, if you think a road book is dangerous, it's not. You know, if you're following a GPS track, that's dangerous unless they mark it with waypoints like they do in some of the professional races, like in Baja. Having a road book in front of you and taking your time to learn the navigation, where you can mark the dangers and you can mark landmarks and things like that. You could get turned around on a GPX track as well, or a GPS track as well. So it's really nice, you know, with the road book. So if you haven't already thought about giving this a shot, you know, drop a comment below. You know, let's get it going. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you could literally do it from your phone. You don't even need to go out. You know, your phone will do it, albeit it's going to be a little bit tiny, but you could do that. You could get on Rally Navigator. Hell, you can print the pages out. Have somebody drive you and you navigate it. You tell them, hey, you know, make a turn here, make it do this, that, and just get a feel for it. And that's all it takes. You know, it's not really rocket science. It just takes some really simple steps. And next thing you know, you'll be hitting up Matthew Glade at a Rally Moto Shop to get you set up for your bike. So very awesome. Let's see here. Let's check back in. All right, Troop. Thank you, sir. We will see you for the next episode. Willem dropping some knowledge here. I definitely wanted to mention this because this is a good stat. So in 2020, 158 bikes started and 96 bikes finished the race. That is a 60.6 finish rate. Of these, only 27 of them were Malimoto riders, which is very interesting. And 21, only 20 riders finished the Malimoto class out of the 63 bike finishers. There was 108 bikes entered. So Malimoto, those guys are tough. That, to me, to see that many finishing for the Malimoto class is very impressive, based on just what they have to go through and what they have to do to make it from one end to the other. So definitely looking forward to catching up with the rest of the team as well. I know Paul Neff, if you haven't, there is an episode on the Chasing Waypoints podcast that you can check out there, as well as let's see, who else I know we got to get Mo Hart on here. We got Jim Pearson. We'll probably get Paul Neff back on here again to catch up and see how the training is going with him as these guys get ready to take on the Dakar. So before we leave, I guess I can choose. So Paul Neff, just a couple quick stories. Paul Neff is the only man I know to finish on 3/4 of a rear sprocket, Sonora Rally. And then I will never forget Jim Pearson racing Garrett Pochet to the line at one of the stage finishes down in Baja, just south of Catavenia. These guys are coming off a dry lake bed, headed into this like silt bed. And I don't know if Garrett knew Jim was right there, and I don't know if Jim knew that Garrett was right there. But these guys, if the red line on a KTM 500 is 10,582, this thing was at 10,581. Jim was full send coming at us. He knew, I mean, at that point, it was a straight line of sight. You could see where the timing would stop. And but these guys were both on two trails next to each other, maybe 50 feet apart with some tall bushes in between. And, well, the road turned into one. So it was very interesting to say they were literally bar to bar, elbow to elbow, shoulder to shoulder, leaning on each other at full send on these bikes. So it was a very, very memorable moment for me that I will always treasure. I mean, I can literally picture it right now, like if I was there. So that's the kind of stuff that you see at rally raids and hanging out in the bivouac, and then to get to hear the war stories after and the stuff that they went through. So like I said, if you're planning on headed to an event or trying to make an event, drop a comment down below. Let's see who's going where, and maybe we could start a little group thing and everybody hang out and show up at the same time. So anyway, that is a wrap. First episode of Waypoint Wednesdays. Hopefully we'll be back on next week, talking a little bit more. We'll see who we have either as a guest, or you'll just get to hear me ramble on for an hour. So we'll see. Anyway, with that being said, guys, we will see ya.